These are 12 songs Michael Jackson, the songwriter behind some of pop's greatest hits, wrote and gave away to other artists that could have been massive hits in his own catalog. While the king of pop is remembered for legendary tracks like Billie Jean, Beat It, and Thriller, few people realize he was quietly crafting top 40 hits for Diana Ross, his own siblings, and even Paul McCartney throughout the 1980s and beyond. Michael Jackson wasn't just a performer or recording artist. He was a songwriter who penned more than 150 songs during his career, with over 20 reaching multi-million performance status on American radio and television. What's fascinating is how many of these compositions he chose to give away to other artists, often at the peak of his own commercial success while simultaneously working with producer Quincy Jones on his own groundbreaking albums. The story begins in 1982 with Muscles, a track Jackson wrote for Diana Ross that became one of the most ironically titled songs in pop history. Fresh off the success of Off the Wall, and while Thriller was in production, Jackson crafted this hit for the Motown legend. The inspiration wasn't what you'd expect. Jackson named the song after his pet boa constrictor, not the kind of muscles Diana Ross was singing about wanting in a man. The story gets even better when you consider how the song came to be. Jackson was flying back from England on the Concorde after working on Paul McCartney's album when the melody popped into his head. Without a tape recorder, he had to suffer through 3 hours of flight time, desperately trying to remember every note. As soon as he landed, he rushed home to record what would become Ross's biggest hit in years. Muscles climbed to number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 and stayed on the charts for 17 weeks, eventually released through RCA Records. Jackson's relationship with Ross went deeper than just one song. "Only very special people," he said about who he'd write for. "Diana's like a mother-lover friend to me. She's wonderful." 3 years later, he'd team up with the Bee Gees to write Eaten Alive for Ross, though this track wouldn't achieve the same success, stalling at number 77 on the Hot 100. Jackson's generosity extended to his own family in remarkable ways. In 1984, he wrote and produced Centipede for his eldest sister Rebbie's debut album. This wasn't just a throwaway track. Centipede became Rebbie's signature song, reaching number 24 on the Hot 100, and eventually earning gold certification in 1992. Jackson even dedicated the song to "My Mannequin Friends" on the record sleeve, adding another layer to his eccentric public persona. The song marked Jackson's first major writing and producing work since Thriller, which makes it all the more significant that he chose to give it to his sister rather than keep it for himself. He also provided backing vocals alongside the Weather Girls, turning the track into a family affair with professional polish. Earlier, in 1980, Jackson had written Nighttime Lover for his sister LaToya, originally conceived for disco queen Donna Summer under the title Fire is the Feeling. LaToya performed the song on American Bandstand, with Michael's vocals prominently featured throughout the track. Nearly 2 decades later, he'd write Fly Away for Rebbie's 1998 album Yours Faithfully, showing his continued commitment to supporting his sister's careers. The most emotionally significant songs Jackson wrote for family members came in 1995 with his nephew's group 3T. After their mother was tragically murdered in 1994, Jackson signed Taj, Terrell, and TJ to his own MJJ music label and co-wrote songs for their debut album Brotherhood with Kenneth Babyface Edmonds. The album sold 3 million copies worldwide, with the group becoming the second biggest selling act in Europe, behind the Spice Girls. One track from that collaboration, Why, had an interesting backstory. Jackson originally recorded it during his History album sessions in 1994, but shelved it because he felt it sounded too much like a Babyface production. Instead of letting it waste away in his vault, he gave it to his nephews, who completed their version in September 1995. When Why was released as a duet between 3T and their uncle, it reached number 2 on the UK charts. Jackson's collaborative spirit extended beyond family to include some of music's biggest names. His work with Paul McCartney produced 2 tracks for the former Beatles' 1983 album Pipes of Peace. While Say 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 became a well-known duet hit, the lesser-known The Man showcased Jackson's ability to write spiritually ambiguous material. As McCartney explained, "If you say the man, it can mean God. It can mean women, listen to your man. it can mean so many things. The relationship with McCartney also connected to one of Jackson's most enduring posthumous releases. In 1980, Jackson had collaborated with songwriter Paul McCartney on several demos, including Love Never Felt So Good, while Johnny Mathis recorded a version with revised lyrics for his 1984 album. Jackson's original demo remained in the vault until 2014, when it was finally released on the Escape album. It made history as Jackson became the first artist to have top 10 singles in 5 different decades. Jackson also reached beyond his immediate circle to write for established stars like Jennifer Holliday, the Broadway legend known for "And I Am Telling You I'm Not Going." He co-wrote and produced "You're the One" for Holliday's 1985 album Say You Love Me, even recording his own version first, before deciding to give it away. His collaboration with funk duo the Brothers Johnson on It Had to Be for their 1980 album Light Up the Night showed Jackson's versatility across genres. He not only co-wrote the track with George and Louis Johnson, but also provided backing vocals, adding his distinctive sound to their established funk formula. What's remarkable about Jackson's songwriting gifts is the strategic thinking behind them. He understood the power of placing the right song with the right artist. Muscles worked perfectly for Diana Ross's sultry vocal style. Centipede gave Rebby a platform to establish her own identity, separate from the Jackson family legacy. The 3T collaborations helped his nephews process grief while building their own careers. Some of these decisions came with controversy. When Drake used Jackson's vocals from those 1980 Paul McCartney sessions for Don't Matter to Me on his 2018 album Scorpion, Jackson's nephew Austin Brown criticized the posthumous collaboration, saying, "If he didn't finish it, then you shouldn't use it." The debate highlighted ongoing tensions about how Jackson's unreleased material should be handled. The scope of Jackson's generosity becomes clear when you consider what he could have achieved keeping these songs for himself. Muscles could have been another massive solo hit. Centipede had the groove and production quality to fit perfectly on Thriller. Why could have been a standout track on History. Instead, Jackson chose to spread his creative wealth across multiple artists and generations. This pattern reveals something profound about Jackson's artistic philosophy. Despite being known as a perfectionist who guarded his image carefully, he was remarkably generous with his songwriting talents. He understood that great songs could have multiple lives with different artists, and he seemed to take pleasure in seeing his compositions succeed in new contexts. Today, as his nephew Taj Jackson works on a documentary series about Michael's life, these songs stand as evidence of a different side of the King of Pop. They show an artist who wasn't just focused on his own legend, but was actively building bridges, supporting family, and contributing to the broader musical landscape. Every song Michael Jackson wrote but gave away tells the story of an artist who understood that sometimes the greatest success comes from lifting others up rather than keeping everything for yourself.